Hey there, little Redbots, this is Red Let's Play, and I admit that my Let's Plays have been taking priority. He's so much so that the Project AIKO has gone a bit to the side. So since that was pointed out by YouTube user McNoda1234, who seems to have subscribed a lot for that, I will rectify that. So, in this part, we're first going to discuss the origin of the Platinum Crew, introduced in the Platinum Car Pack of Need for Speed Payback, but which also ties into the Black Ridge Rivals set of races from Need for Speed No Limits. The Platinum Crew of Fortune Valley was one of the quiet crews of the city district. With its members, his skillful racing off-road and on the circuit. One of their races was a rival of Tyler Morgan and had a long history in the canyons of Black Ridge. They were sponsored by some media sites and performance manufacturers like Speed Hunters and Baller. They're known to wear platinum livery pinstripes that were chrome and cars that were colored white gloss. You will make note of said livery that looks like this. Well, a couple of them look like that. That was actually surprisingly quick for this. So now we are going to look at the man who Thomas Spidowsky, the man who forced our hand in us being me and original creator Stubby Fresh Tributes. What? In rewriting this whole theory, that man is Thomas Spidowsky, one of the figures of Need for Speed. Originally the unnamed driver of the famous E46 M3 GTR, Thomas Spidowsky was one of the members of the early Scorpios crew run by Kenji in Palmont. Running for the crew, he drove a Lancer Evo 9 and was good at handling corners along mountains. Seemingly, he fairly adept and as if ready to rally. But it was too sharp to take corners, making the car go forward while drifting at insane speeds. I guess that if in doubt, flat out mentality stuck around from the days of Colin McRae. During his time in Palmont, he met Nikki, little knowing that she had association with the late Lucky Sevens. On a fateful night, he was in a trial in the mountains until such a time he went in the opening of Carbon. You see his Evo crash rolling off the side of a canyon stage dueling another racer. This crash disabled him pretty bad, with shards of glass around his body. When he was rushed into the emergency room, he was visited by Nikki, transferring his feelings away from him, because she wasn't really keen on having a disabled boyfriend. The doctors considered Thomas's injuries permanent. However, they healed within the next 6 months. On the following day, of which he met one of the dragons. Talking with said dragon on a coffee shop, only for him or her to feel pity for Thomas and give to them their secret project, which is a Supra captured from Chad of the Eastsiders. However, Thomas used the car to find Nikki, only to find out that she was in league with Darius of the Stacked Deck Hex. On what I assume is a recommendation from Nikki, Darius gave Spidowsky a chance to improve his skills. With Thomas unknowingly being a pawn in Darius's greater scheme. This scheme involved the prize money for the prologue race in Carbon. As we find out near the end of the game, Darius arranged for the money to be replaced with counterfeit hits, and for Spidowsky to be the only person to escape. Going to one of his hideouts where he kept a Mustang Fox body. The wise man that he is, he chose to ditch the Supra in favor of the Mustang, without knowing that said Supra had a tracker, and the reason that the car was EMP proof was because the car was a police immobile vehicle. The plan was to arrest Thomas and a fellow named Chad. However, it failed when the tracker was taken out by the EMP. The Supra was captured, only to be distributed to a driver who goes to Texas to watch Ryan Cooper race in a Supra promotion event. The Fox body Mustang was able to get Spidowsky to Ventura Bay, hitting the stage for Need for Speed 2015. And if you've seen my Let's Play series of that, you'll probably know how that plays out. Being a determined driver, Spidowsky, he meets Spike and defeats some random BMW that we don't know who, if they're any kind of critical. And grabs the attention of rally/gymkhana driver Ken Block, Porsche collector and out/speed demon Magnus Walker, aka the Urban Outlaw, Rawvelt Begrip, Hif designer Akira Nakai-san, etc. Thomas was presented to the world where he can step in as an outlaw. Travis, after a photo shoot, convinced Thomas that he'll do something for him in return. This would become a massive collaborative project which would culminate in the iconic M3 GTR, the cover car of Most Wanted 05. The plan was to create it with the original European specs in mind, but tuned more towards agility rather than endurance as it was built. I could go on about how the original purpose-built race model of the M3 GTR was aimed at Le Mans and whatever and all of that lovely stuff, but that's a video for another time. Now that the M3 is in Thomas's possession, he decides to test it out in an outlaw competition in Rockport, setting the stage for Most Wanted 05. However, by the end of the game, we discover that it's more than just an outlaw or racing league. Undercover police operative Mia Townsend was sent by Rockport PD to track Spidowsky's move ever since the Palmont incident. Mia guided him to cross in an effort to arrest him, but Cross was caught up with another, shall we say, reckless driver. As such, Thomas was free to wander around town to find a competition, and 2 days later, he would get a challenge from Ronnie McCrea, driving a Toyota Supra that was mechanically insignificant. As such, Spidowsky really needed to really mess up if he wanted to lose. Which, as I found out playing the game myself, is possible, and not just by slamming on the brake and never using the throttle again. It was at this moment that Razor and his team knew that Thomas was coming, and he will do something despite his influence in Ventura Bay. To get the M3 for himself. As such, Razor wanted to actually see Thomas in action, and so test him against Toru Bull Sato in his Mercedes McLaren SLR. With police interference, might I add. Thomas did not disappoint. The following day or two, someone had contacted a Pontiac GTO driver, codenamed Raj, or Rog, whatever, to again test Spidowsky. Nobody knew who it was, but someone had a clue with Spidowsky going underground when he collaborated with Travis in Ventura Bay. Thomas was able to defeat Raj, praising his style and offering his aid as an associate with no relations to Mia. Indeed, he didn't even know that Mia was an undercover operative during the events of Most Wanted. Two days later, the infamous race in which Razor had challenged Thomas for the very first time happened. It's reasonable to explain that by disabling the caps of the transmission box, the fluids from that system failure would explain the oil slick that Mia made note of just before the car pulled to a stop. Thomas was forced to concede defeat. He give the car to Razor and eventually was left as the only one that to be in the area when Cross and his men arrived. Thomas was put down and did time for minor offenses like traffic penalty and fine, but as Mia said, when she came by to get him out, it's hard to nail you for street racing when you don't have a car. As such, he only did a few months in the inside, having to cope with the inside of a jail cell. Mia's true goal wasn't to arrest Thomas, but the entire blacklist. As we see, he at the end of the game. The caveat is that once she turns them all in, she decides when she's done with police work. Motivated by the prospect of freedom, Mia gave Thomas money for a new car, and thus began his conquest of the Rockport area. As he defeated each of the 15 blacklist races in turn, around the city. He gained respect from the around territory, and even more so when he claimed number 1. From that day, Thomas had defeated all of the blacklist drivers and immobilized and had caused a fairly significant amount of damage to police equipment. I mean, let's go through the list. Crown Victorias, Pontiac GTOs, Corvettes, SUVs, spike strips, the whole kit and caboodle. No doubt, at some point through all of it, there could have been 1 or 2 casualties, causing distress around on the entire Rockport PD. For the final race between Thomas and Razor in an Audi A4 and the M3 respectively, I was able to tell that it was an Audi A4 because of the reflection on the M3 in that cutscene. The race it is a battle of attrition. Being a whole 5 heat events, 2 more than Thomas was used to. But regardless, he was able to defeat Razor and become the number 1 most wanted driver on the Rockport blacklist. But Thomas still had to escape. So how did he do this? Well, if you've actually played the game till the very end, you'll remember that after reclaiming the M3, Thomas has to survive 5 minutes with police on his tail, and then make a jump off a bridge, leaving Rockport PD to never hear anything from him again. Mia was very praised for her work, for her hand in defeating the blacklist, and was offered a promotion to an enforcer. But like I said, one of her other option for a reward was that Mia decides when she wants to retire from police work. She decided better now than never. By this time, the Stack Deck had taken control of Silverton after reducing the Samurais, Vortex, and the Kings to mere rubble as far as significance is concerned. Unaware of this, Spidowsky arrived in the mountains of Fairhaven, finding his alternate positive counterpart, which is Zephyr, in parentheses, Ghost. The entire blacklist was with his Zephyr, unlike Spidowsky, whose entire blacklist was against him. The two had the same titles in different cities, until the two raced. A race that will never be mentioned within or confirmed within Need for Speed canon. The battle between the two was about skills, abilities, and spirit. Zephyr had the advantage of these qualities. Worse for Thomas, it was that Zephyr's driving was self-taught and robust. The race did indeed start out very smoothly, with the two using agility and balanced power, but when a corner arrived, this is when the silver throne of the M3 goes to ash, when the golden bird just drifted in the speed of 200 miles an hour with no issue. Yeah, because criterion handling, and it's not known for realism, so yeah. Thomas was in the rear end and on a fair distance, and Zephyr was taking the lead like a hot knife through butter. Thomas can't keep up, and every time he pushed his limit up on every corner and straightaway, Zephyr always gained distance, and his opponent was blacking out due to G-tolerance being delivered by the M3. Worse was the incoming traffic that Thomas had to evade. Thomas had to push his limit just a little bit more, so much so that the E46 drive shaft after an axle broke down on a corner, going an insane 172 miles an hour. As such, the rear of the M3 hits a wall on a tunnel, destroying the M3's internals. However, its roll cage and other protection unit kept him from getting injured by shrapnel and glass shards, and as such was able to walk away just fine. Maybe he should have had a co-driver reading off pace notes on that race, but then again, people don't seem to associate street racing with rallying. Despite the E46 being very precious to Thomas, she was unable to be driven as most of the primary systems had been disabled. Zephyr approached Thomas to talk to him as if the victor wasn't as if Zephyr's victory wasn't 100% earned. The two had a conversation with Zephyr saying that every blacklist racer and the ones that are striving be on the list in Fairhaven, and bothering every single police unit within the area. And with that, the loyalty of the Fairhaven blacklist goes to Zephyr. They give conditions to Thomas that he'll do something to repair had the M3, because Zephyr thought that his driving was precise due to an extreme case of agility that the M3 can't seem to handle. However, he mentioned that he has his own throne to keep, to extend rather than an extend, like the reason why he battled him due to his norms about Darius. The two then parted ways until the next day, when a woman named Anne, along with Rachel, Teller, and Travis, restored the M3 to its former glory. Spidowsky owed them so much for this that even this spokes on Rivera's case that she will be handling Mia's prior case about an unknown most wanted driver from Rockport who was unknown to the profile but famous to the street racing community of Rockport. From there, Head Thomas sped off, missing Seacrest County, going to the canyons of Nevada, reaching the Carbon Canyon of Palmont City, specifically going into Silverton. A day before this, Cross was dismissed from Rockport PD. You'd think it was from Mia, but actually not. It was some other highly decorated enforcer. As such, Cross decided to go all in on hunting Thomas's bounty, as that was what he deemed retribution for Thomas costing him his job. A loyal member of the stacked deck, David, saw the scene in Fairhaven and Rockport, knew the profile driver as Thomas, and now he was reported heading west to Silverton. David decided to tip Cross off, and giving him the last location from where he could intercept the same vehicle that he chased down in Rockport before. Cross got the opportunity out from rumors and investigations. Eventually finding him down the canyon, chasing him in his new Corvette at C6 Z06. Cross rammed the back of the M3, causing the car to accelerate downhill, and eventually he cornered Spidowsky by allowing a concrete foundation to fall on top of him and crushing the back of the car and its only recently repaired axle. Something that Cross made note of after gathering much detailed information on finding his target. The stacked decks, however, knew about this too, with Darius moving into Commission Crossing and negotiating with Thomas about working with him again. As if Thomas thought that the prologue that the race with the Supra was just an accident and only an ambush from Palmont and police forces. Nikki, in her newly modified Ford GT, scolded Spidowsky about not showing up again due to the event, and that she thought he abandoned her from that very moment. Darius knew very much what Thomas was capable of, and now Darius has a potential weapon to use against his top rivals, Angie's 21st Street, Kenji's Bushido, and Wolf's TFK. Now, once again, without a car, Thomas was sent to Neville, who was able to supply him with either a Camaro, a RX-8, or an Alfa Romeo Brera. Thomas's methods of defeating Darius' rivals was to build up his own faction and recruit people like Sal Mastella, Yumi, and Colin, not Colin McRae. He would have probably been working on the R4 or the Paris Dakar if he hadn't already died by this point. They dominated the entire south of the city away from Silverton, during which time Thomas slowly found out more and more about what happened in Palmont while he was away. As such, Thomas chose to confront Darius about this, but was instead put down by Cross. But Nikki, he tipped Cross off about this. And out of empathy, he chose to accept Nikki's deal and galvanize their true foe. Back in action, Thomas went about conquering Silverton and dominating the entire Palmont racing scene. With all the crews from Palmont to Olympic City now aware of how capable he is, Darius gave him a warning. There's always someone a little faster than you are, and sooner or later they're going to catch up. Thomas wasn't afraid of this. Nicky did indeed admit to loving Thomas. But as we already mentioned, Nicky isn't exactly keen on disabled men. On the following days, Thomas got a call from Zephyr, claiming to know the real owner of Silverton and the rest of the city. Confused at this, he took Darius's Audi R8 Le Mans concept to the location and sent by Zephyr. When he got there, he was greeted by Zephyr and the drivers of two tuner cars, Sarah and Carter. Fellow former associates of Darius, but betrayed by the latter for greed and power. They realized that the two did indeed have something in common after all. With Zephyr as the two parties' mutual acquaintance, Sarah felt comfortable confessing the truth about the Lucky Sevens, and that Nick Rogers, with issues in Coast City. Thomas knew about this and just gave away his territories to the last remaining remnants of the Lucky Sevens. In the morning, Thomas took the Audi and divided his territory under Neville, Colin, Yumi, Samson, the Lucky Sevens in Silverton, and Sal, owning all of the old arsenals and garages, raising a car shop business, and supplying with the intent on supplying future races. A little later on, Thomas was driving along in his new Audi until it was ambushed by an unmarked Rhino unit. The car appeared as if it had been cannon-rolled, with Thomas being sent to the hospital. This was to be expected, so covert surveillance agents were dispatched to the hospital, so that they could catch him. Nicky had anticipated this, though, and told him to escape on foot after being conscious with only a rib injury from the impact. Thomas was chased by the two agents after escaping the ER. He ran towards the parking lot only to find Nicky's Ford GT, and that she had left the keys with somewhere he could find. Thomas got in the car and escaped, after which contacted Nicky about where they meet. There they have a short chat, and Nicky still admits to having feelings for Thomas. And Thomas still reluctant to admit that he'll be perfect for him. In the morning, he picked up his repaired E46 from Sal. Setting out, destination Rockport. By this time, Rockport didn't have many street races. Because at this time, Fate and Zephyr were waging war with one another. And, quoting Fate from his very first line of dialogue in the police story arc of Need for Speed Rivals, "We have to win every single time we turn our lights on, or the public loses faith that we can defend them." Before arriving in Rockport, Thomas admits that he has feelings for Mia. He found her around the city until he came upon her at work. And so the two who went to her house with the M3 parked outside. She talked about how Officer Rivera was handling Covert Operation 510. Thomas confessed his feelings towards Mia, and she somewhat consented over coffee and a one-night stand. In the morning, Thomas was refueling the M3 until he spotted a driver who might be a potential racer around town. From driving a minivan in the morning to driving a Dragon's Evo 9 at night. Thomas offered him a challenge as a test. During this test, Thomas saw potential in this young driver, seeing his own shadow in every corner. Capable of even being better than his younger self. This man's name was Richard. Eventually, Thomas received a challenge from Ming, having updated to a Lamborghini Huracan, to which Thomas won, letting Ming confess about a crash, leaving him to not deal with problems anymore, now able to live in peace with Mia. The two spent their life together for some time, with Nikki finding this out and deciding to give up on him. Now a toll booth employee in Rockport, Thomas this goes home one day with Mia not arriving yet. Being a good boyfriend, and he cooked for her, and yet still she had not arrived for hours. The phone rang, and he got a call from the mafia saying that they'd kidnapped Mia, and if he wants her back, he has to go to the location sent by them. He gets into his coupe hatchback BMW i8, and he made absolute haste. The mafia escorted him to the boss of Arkwright, and Thomas was confronted to bother the Fairhaven PD while an operation by the mafia was being handled inside the bank. Clearly a heist. Thomas was given a choice to save Mia, and if he did, and as such, he agrees, heading back to the house and summoning back the very monster that turned him into the most wanted in the first place, the legendary M3. Using this car to assist the mafia, until they gave Thomas a call about Marcus Blackwell. Marcus guided him, telling him that the M3 wasn't suited for the operation. And as such, they sourced him a tactical BMW M3 coupe instead. A few months later, he was in the streets of Fairhaven, and the mafia gave him a prompt to do it. Thomas turned every police unit's head to him, and every car was immobilized and crushed, with some of the police officers dying. The M3 was capable of dropping spike strips and was able to ram heavy vehicles like the Superior Rhino, making this coupe a dangerous vehicle around the public. The heist complete, Thomas left and made a burning city. The Fairhaven Blacklist didn't like this, and Zephyr, her ghost, was called while he was in hospital after facing fate. Mia had returned home and with no payment or anything, but Thomas was allowed to keep the car he used. But on the way home, he was blocked by the VRT and forced to press charges to the FBI. Mia came in and defended him, and thus the court was delayed. A day later, Thomas was visited by a cop named MK. MK helped Thomas get out of jail thanks to his contribution for Sarah and Carter. But in return, Thomas will race the run and find out who are the members of the ARC who kidnapped them. With the aid of Mia and MK, they operated on a warehouse with collaboration with the FBI VRT. Thomas agreed with these terms, and the E-46 was in storage, and the analysis of the VRT, with the aid of Officer Rivera, the new M3 would be used. The VRT called in a familiar figure from Le Mans, USA, none other than Ryan Cooper himself. Ryan helped Spidowsky to tune in the M3 and replace most of its specs, but the armored chassis is preferred for this race. Rivera took the advantage of contacting Travis instead. Thomas started from the top 30, with his only goal being to find out who kidnapped Mia. As the VRT has been hunting this guy down for the past decade, the money isn't of any concern to them. As such, he let Jack walk past and concentrated on the lead. His final finishing position was within the top 5, and he saw the wreckage, finishing so close to Jack that he saw the wreckage of Marcus Blackwell. The FBI captured him, and he was interrogated on a compound, revealing a few information regarding the mafia. Mia and Thomas were released and moved to another location where they can live in peace. This place was in Ventura Bay, where he remained for a year until he got a call from Rog, saying that the ARC had just killed an FBI agent while searching for him. Thomas was tired about all the commotions between the mafia and the law, and while he had nothing to use against this type of situation and just wanted to get out, tired from work and tired of paying taxes. Indeed, Mia wants to get married, but he receives a call from Rivera, who claims that the M Power project was created solely for him. Based on an M4 shell with more or less the specs of the E46, it is a built prototype tested by Zero and associated to Kim from Blackridge that even Ken Block and Monster Energy / Hoonigan Racing collaborated in making the better M4. Thomas saw that the new version of this can go beyond his old GTR. Razor was scared of this, and the two raced again. Before this, Mia was jealous of a black woman that had replaced Cross in the Force, and somehow she was able to intercept races more easily. Thomas started a poll of new most wanted with the mysterious 6666 Subaru BRZ joining the list, along with the previous remnants and Razor. Thomas, Razor, and Cross's protege, or some other Rockport PD female Corvette driver, faced each other in the streets of LA, and this is where Herr Thomas began to associate with what was coming. So I acknowledge that this has been very long. You can kind of explain. This can kind of explain why I've been focusing so much on Let's Plays for the past while, because, well, how little I would need to edit them is more or less justified. So with that, I'll probably split Thomas's story into 2 parts, if I'm even going to edit this thing at all, because, well, I'm recording this on my laptop, and if I try and use Movie Maker from here, it doesn't work as well as it does on my better PC. So regardless, if you guys enjoyed this story of that infamous M3 GTR driver, be sure to hit that like button and share the videos in favorite videos, do all those stuff. Tell me in the comments down below what you guys thought of it. And if you're new to my channel, don't forget to subscribe for more. And also subscribe to Stubby Fresh Tributes, who was the original creator of all of it. Massive props to him for allowing me to distribute all of this. But until next time, I'll see you in the next one. Peace.